So in this video, what we're going to do is finally connect our Georgian computer store to a database. And we're going to set that up both locally, which will be faster, and on a shared server. And the first thing we want to do is, if you can go into your computer and then just go into your search here and type in manage, you should have some sort of icon or something pop up that talks about your SQL Server Management Studio. But if you're like me and you don't have it, what you can do is go to this website, the Microsoft website, and just type in SQL Server Management Studio, and it should bring you to this page. And what you want to do is go ahead and download your SQL Server Management Studio. And it looks like it's release 18.5, and it came out on the 7th of April. I've already gone and downloaded the file, and what I'm going to do is just click on it and install it. So I'll pause the video while that's going on. So it looks like the setup's been complete. It was about a half a gig to download, but it actually wasn't too bad. And I'm going to just finish throughout the installation, and then we'll get started from there. So now that it's been installed, what I want to do is go into here into my search and just type in manage or man, and you'll see this Microsoft SQL Management Studio 18. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and I'll bring it over to the screen. So when you open it up, you're going to get this connection to the server dialog box, and you're going to want to put in your selections. So we're going to actually do 3 different options. We're going to connect to a local server, and we're going to use a username and password. We can connect to a local server with Windows authentication. And then finally, we can connect to a remote server. And in this video, we're going to go through all 3. So for the first one, I just want to actually type in with the brackets. I'm going to type in local. It's important that you make sure the word local is inside those brackets. And go ahead and hit the connect button. And you can see that it's connecting to my local server. Okay, so more than likely you got this error if you're trying to connect to your local database. If not, you can move a little bit forward, but more than likely you got this error. And what we're going to do is figure out how to solve this problem. So I'm going to click out of there, and I want to show you one thing. Notice here, if I do the browse, there is actually nothing there. That's the first problem. If I go to network servers, it's retrieving the other network servers. But right now we want to do the local one. So I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going to go back down to here again, and I'm going to type in services. Okay, go to your services icon into here. So what we're looking for here is SQL Server, and in the brackets it should say Express. SQL Express in capitals. But as you can see here, I don't have it. So now I've got to go and get it. So the one thing we're going to do is go to just Google SQL Server Downloads right here. And it should bring you to this page here. And you're looking to go to the Microsoft Downloads and right here. So if you've got Windows, Linux, or whatever. So I've got Windows, so I'm going to go through and do an install. Install on Windows. And I'll pause the video while I do that setup. So I've come to this page here, and I'm selecting Get Started, and I'm going to go to SQL Server 2019, and it looks like it's only going to give me a 180-day trial. So I'll continue with this start your evaluation with an exe, and I'll put in the details, and then I'll continue to do the installation. So I've put in all my particulars and it looks like it's downloading the installation file. And here I'm just going to click on basic. All this stuff and accept it, because if I don't get to use it. Now you can see here the actual size of the download. It's going to take a while, so I'll pause the video and hopefully this is all going to work. I guess I read that wrong because it doesn't actually look too bad in terms of the amount of size that it's downloading. So, well, maybe I was wrong. Okay, so that took quite some time, but we're here now. So I'm going to leave all these defaults as they are at the moment, and I'm just going to hit the Connect Now button, and I'm getting this screen here. Okay, from here, everything's fine. Microsoft SQL Server 2019. Okay, that's good. Okay, so I know we've already installed the SSMS, but we're going to go ahead and do it again. So I'm clicking on this. Okay, just ignore that last step about the install SSMS and go to customize. And what I want to do is just click on this, use Microsoft Update to check for updates. So next. Next. I'm sure there's a product key in my Azure portal, and I'm going to go check that right now. So I went into my Azure account and I was hoping to get a product key from Georgian College, but it turns out we don't have one. So I'll have to stick with the evaluation. So I hit evaluation, next, accept, next, next. There are validation errors on this page. Okay. Okay, I'm going to cancel this. Yes. Looks like I'll have to do a little bit of editing. So anyway, I'm back to SQL Server and I've got local. And if I do the drop down now, you see that I've got local servers now. And this is what I'm really after. And look at what you see here on the left side of the screen. So at this point you should be here. If I collapse all this stuff, I'll collapse this. And if I look at my connections, my database engine, it is this desktop. This is my computer and it's all local. So I'm just connecting, I'm staying connected. So I'm hoping that you're to this point right now. So that was a lot of work just to get to this point. So what I want to do now is go ahead and create a couple of databases. The first one's just going to be a test just to show you how it all works. So I'm going to right click on databases and I'm going to new database and I'm going to call this one today. Very simple. So this would be the same as using my SQL commands where I would type in create blah, 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 Tuesday. So what we're doing is actually creating the database without using SQL commands. I'm going to expand my databases here and just to show you that I don't really have anything in there. Oops. And I'm going to go ahead and select OK. Now you can see it here that it's not under my system database, it's right here. It's under databases and then today. Okay, don't worry, this is just a dummy one to show you how it works. We're not going to use this particular database. And now I want to obviously add a couple of tables to this database. Okay, but look inside this file folder. There's lots of different subfolders that go into that database. So right now we're going to just make a couple of tables. I could, if I wanted, use SQL commands to do all this, but the server manager's got actually a lot of easier tools than doing it the old hydraulic way. What's really great about this is I think that it's intuitive that if we want to build a table, we need to go into the tables folder. And again, just like we did to build the database, I right click on it, new table. And it's going to create this interface for me to start putting in all the items that I need inside my table. This is a lot better than doing SQL commands for this. So for this first one, I'm going to call this one, as an example, country ID. Okay. Actually, I'll change that to lowercase. It doesn't matter, but I'm going to change it to lowercase. And that is actually, I'm going to change that to an integer. If I can find it right there. Okay, and I'm going to unclick my allow nulls. And down below, what I definitely want to check is under identity specification right here. And if I open that up a little further, is identity. When I change this to yes, that is actually how I'm going to increment automatically. Okay. So again, that's much better than having to do it hydraulically through SQL commands. If you were guessing by the hint that it says ID that I was going to make this the primary key, you would have been correct. So I'm right clicking and set primary key. Okay, and you can see the little key icon appear right beside it. I think one of the most powerful things about that is that when you type it all in hydraulically, you introduce bugs into your code just by spelling mistakes or just incorrectly typing in some of the syntax. By doing it this way, you eliminate a lot of the potential for errors that you're going to have to go and solve later. And just as a reminder, whenever we set something to a primary key, it's really important that we set the identity from no to yes. You have to do that for all your primary keys. So let's go in and do another one, and I'll do this as a name, and I'll leave this to I actually going to change that to a varchar 50 and uncheck the nulls. Something else I should highlight is that this identity seed, this is basically within our record, we'd be at identity record number 1. You can change this to be number 1000. So you're not the first customer or the first record. Okay, so you've got that flexibility with identity seed. You can change that to your first one will be 1000. So let's go ahead and save that, because you notice here there's a star. Typically with Microsoft products, if there's a star here, it means you haven't saved it. So I'll go and save it, and it's asking me for a name, and I'm going to name this table country. Okay, done. So this table's name is country. And let's go over here, and when we expand this out, I've got this table called country within my database. You can see that right there. So while we're here, we might as well do something hydraulically. And I'm going to go over to this new query, and we're going to come up with a few country names. So I'll type in, I'll just select the new query button, and I'll do the old-fashioned way. Insert into country. You can see that IntelliSense selects the table that I want, which is awesome because it helps me avoid errors. And I'll go name. See, again, it does it. Close it off. And values. And Okay. And there. And what do we want to put in here? I think let's come up with a couple of names for countries. Okay, so the first one we'll just go with Canada. Canada, and I'll copy and paste this whole line and we'll get a couple more. Oops, sorry. So Canada, USA, India, the UK. I think that's fine. I don't need many more. As a double check, the one thing I can do is I can check my syntax before anything by going to this button here and clicking it, and you see that commands completed successfully. So that validated that my commands were pretty good. Now that I know it's been validated, I'm just going to go ahead and select my execute button. So you can see the number of rows that were added. Something that's kind of interesting that we can do here is we can check or confirm the country ID. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to type in select star from country, and you can see the IntelliSense grabs it, semicolon. But if I want to just run that particular line and not the rest of them, I need to grab it and highlight it. Then I can execute it, and it's going to give me the information that I want, but it's not going to rerun this. Okay, it's only going to run or execute the line that I've highlighted. So you can see here, we went from country ID, Canada is 0 to 1001, 2, and 1003 for the UK. So perfect. That's exactly what we want right now. So what I've shown you is that you can actually do it through sort of more of a GUI interface and create the tables, but you can also run new queries. It's up to you which one you want to do is better. I would prefer to do it with the drag and drop or point and click, because I think that it reduces the number of errors that I could put into my code. I don't want to spend time debugging. I want results. So you can do it hydraulically if you want through using the query button, or you can do it the way that I showed you. Either way, you're going to have to do one or the other for your work going forward. I want to show you a really great feature of this as well. If I go to my table, I don't want to get in and start doing alter commands if I don't have to. So one great thing is I can select the table that I want, right click on it, and then I can go to my design. And what that does is it brings back up the table that I've created here. So let me just shut that off and then I'll show you how to do it. So I go back to the table, right click design, and you see that it comes up. So now I can go in and do whatever editing that I want to do. I can add stuff or change the data types or whatever I want to do. I can do it this way. I don't have to do SQL alter commands. So I think that's a great feature of this. So now I want to show you a really interesting option that we have in here. If you go to this folder called views, what we can do is right click on that and do a new view. This is actually going to allow us to make tables more on a drag and drop type of way instead of SQL commands. This is a really interesting option that we've got. So I can write SQL queries without actually writing any of the code, is what I'm trying to say. I think I'm going to come back to that later when we have more than one table, because right now if I go to views and I do a new view, I've only got the one table in there. But what I wanted to be able to do is double click on that and start dragging and dropping and making connections between different tables. I think I'll have to come back to that when I have more tables. Okay. If you're familiar with Microsoft Access, there are similar tools in there as well, which I think are great. So I'm hoping we'll come back to this. So another thing that I want to tell you about, if you're doing this for a customer, chances are they have a whole database full of information about their customers, but maybe on an Excel spreadsheet. So you can go to the table and you can go and you can, right click on the table, go to tasks. And if you go down to here, you can import data from here. And unfortunately, I don't have any data that I can bring in, but that's something that's a possible capability with all of this. So it's taking your customer's data. Instead of having to hydraulically type it all in, you can actually import it into the tables that you set up. I think that's a great feature. In terms of the other tasks, one thing you can do just for safety is you can go tasks and backup. Okay, but we should be doing a lot of this stuff on GitHub anyway, so if you want one extra layer of safety, you can do this. And then of course there's the restore. Okay, so these two options are in here as well. So I'm gonna turn these ones off because, oops. No. What I want to do is actually go in and create a new database for our Georgian computers. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to call it Georgian computers. Don't add any spaces to it. It's just all just Georgian computers, no spaces, no extensions, no nothing. Just do that. Okay. And we'll get into doing the edits. But for now, I just want to add that database. Okay. So you can see it's right in here and I'm going to close today. And now on my screen, I've got two databases. I've got today and Georgian computers. And obviously this is the one we care about today. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is actually start considering the tables that we want to do inside our store. And this is the ERD that we have, and it's in your week 3 under controllers. And this is basically what it looks like. There's some one-to-one and one-to-many relationships here. And you'll notice products is connected to carts and order details. And everything else is pretty much a one-to-many. Each one of them is designated by their primary key. But what I do want to highlight is that this one here, this users, we're going to treat that separately. That has to do with our authentication, that when we set up the actual project, we selected the authentication through Microsoft Visual Studio. So we'll leave this one out, but we're gonna work on this stuff. Now, if you want for practice, you can go ahead and build your own tables. But what I have down here is the actual script that we can run. So what I'd like you to do is actually click on that and download that file if you want to. And I'm going to show you how to bring that in and run the script from there. Okay, so we're just going to need to go get it from where we actually showed in the folder. Okay, it's right there in my downloads. You can see in two places I've got order, which is underlined as an error. That's because order is a keyword in SQL. So if I just put square brackets around that, it should clear that that error. There, the error's gone away. So there are some differences between MySQL and SQL, but it's kind of outside of the scope of what I want to do. You might want to research that on your own. So if you are trying to make these tables on your own for just practice, use this as a reference, but know that between SQL and MySQL, there will be a little bit of differences. And the other thing I want to highlight is for product, we're starting at 1,000. For cart, we're starting at 100. And for order, we're starting at 2,000. And then even down here for order detail, 20,000. Okay, so you just need to be aware of a couple slight differences there. And I've gone ahead and I've just basically tested out that everything was working really well. And now I'm going to go and hit the execute button. Okay. And so it seem to work just fine. Let's go look at the results. Okay, so right off the bat, notice there's no tables. Okay, they are there, but if you didn't see them, then go and hit that refresh icon. Luckily, they were in there, but chances are you might not have seen them. Just have to refresh it. But anyway, if you can see that all 5 of our tables are there: cart, category, order, order detail, and product. So we're good to go so far. We can actually get a little deeper inside and see what's going on with them. So if I select on the plus sign at cart and columns, I can see even further detail about the table itself. So I'm going to close that one up, and I want to go and look at my order detail for 2 reasons. One, just to show you that it's slightly different, and 2, I've got 1 primary key with the black key and then 2 foreign keys in this particular table, and that's a lighter shade of key, I suppose. So just so you know the difference, if you look at cart and column, there's a primary key and a foreign key, but I've got 2 foreign keys in this particular table called order detail. Okay, so I think it's the point that we can go over to Visual Studio and open up our project, which I've actually already had open. But you notice I can go back and forth between Visual Studio and our server management studio. And one thing you'll notice is that the interface between the two is actually pretty similar. There is one thing in Visual Studio that you can actually do in View Server Explorer. Okay, there's this over here. One of the things is that this is at times somewhat cumbersome. Like we could have gone through all of this that we've done so far this way, but it gets a little more cumbersome. So by using Server Studio, it's a little bit easier to work inside this environment than it is to strictly just do it here. But I know you're going to be a little bit frustrated or disappointed when I say this, but a lot of what we've done so far, we could have actually done already right in here in Server Explorer. Okay, and that was in View right here, Server Explorer. Let's look at our SQL Server Object Explorer, which is right in here. So there's some differences there, but notice my local database here, databases, nothing here right now that we want. Okay. But clearly we're going to want to now connect our the database to the actual software itself. And one thing that we will have to do throughout this course is we're going to have to connect to our Azure database as well. Okay, so don't do it yet, but at some point we are going to do that, because for your term project, we are going to be connecting to the Azure database as of today. And I say that because we're doing some work on servers right now. So the current thinking is we go to Azure, but we may be looking at a different platform. I'll leave that at that for now. Okay, so before we go any further, one thing I want to do is I just want to run it and make sure that everything is still as it should be. Nothing's broken, and it is still adaptive. I can see with the little hamburger, so things are still good within the program that we've started. Okay, first thing we do have to do is I do want to highlight something. And if we go into our apps setting.json, look at right here. See if I can get a little bit more clarity there. Okay, so our connection strings, our default connection. And you notice that this line here, this local DB, okay, that's in there. This is a default connection string, and we don't want to connect to this. This is just a local data file. So this is something that we've got to address. We definitely want to connect to the local one that we just created over here, right? That's the one we want to connect to. So that line is always there, and what I prefer to do, instead of deleting it, I'm just going to comment it out, because if maybe something happens and I want to just do some testing, I can always just uncomment that, and that's what I'm going to go to. And what I'm going to do is use the this default connection is an actual Microsoft keyword. Let's see if the no, the IntelliSense isn't getting it. Okay, because I didn't put it into quotes. Okay, so it's a default connection that we need, and it's a Microsoft keyword. Okay, so I don't want to hydraulically type out that string. So what I'm going to do is actually go over to my Server Explorer. I don't know if you know about this or not, but if you have this little pin, you can hide it, and then you see how Server Explorer will minimize. And this one here, I'm going to shut off the Object Explorer, but you can see this, and you've got the tools, but don't worry about tools right now. I'll shut that off too. But right now I've got my Server Explorer open, and if I go to my data connections here and I right click on that and I go to add connection, brings me to this dialog box right now. So when I get this dialog box, there's a couple of things I want you to be aware of. What we do want is this Microsoft SQL Server. That's the one we want. But notice here, this is a Microsoft Access database file. Just keep that in the back of your mind as a reserve in case our local doesn't work out. But for now, just know that it's there. I don't want the data source one or this one or Oracle. Okay. And I'm going to uncheck this. Okay. I'm going to uncheck this here. It says always use the selection, because if I have it checked, I won't get this option in the future. So I'm going to uncheck that and go to Microsoft SQL Server and connect or continue. So we come to this screen here, and it's a Microsoft SQL Server client. If you try to drop down, you get this message here. There's nothing in it. So what I'm going to do in here is type in local again. And enter. Oh. I'll type in local. And it's going to try and retrieve something. Okay, and then down below, what I would like to do is look at the two that I've got. So select or enter a database name. I've got the one we did before, which is today, and Georgian Computers. Clearly that's the one I want. So before I go further, I'm going to hit test my connection. Notice test connection succeeded. So okay. Now you can see over here. Okay, now I've got that connection, this Georgian Computers DOB or DBO, sorry. And let's drop it down. I've got tables, and I've got all the tables that we produced in the right in here in Server Manager. So you might be wondering why, though, I chose to do everything in Management Studio as opposed to Visual Studio. It's because Management Studio has much better tools. It's a custom-made IDE to do all of that functionality with the SQL. Whereas if I'd have tried to do it through Server Explorer, a little bit less, or I shouldn't say a little bit, but less functionality, and it's just better to do it that way, because I can easily, you saw how easily I connected to it, but it's a better environment for me to work in my database and in my tables and then just connect it up. So it's actually better to do it over there as opposed to inside Visual Studio. So the whole reason we're here is actually to update this default connection. We need to get our hands on that string. Okay, so if I go to over to my Server Explorer, and now that I've got the actual connection to my local database or local server, I can right-click on there and go to Properties. Now, Properties is opened up over here for me inside the Solution Explorer on this side. And look at this here, our connection string. That's the thing that we really need, right? So if I double click on that and I right click and copy, that's the string that I want. So now that I'm here, I just need to add the quotations and then paste it in there. That's what I wanted. Okay, so that's now my default connection string. This line here, this integrated security equals true, this was because when we connected the database we were looking for, we had Windows authentication. And we didn't have to put a username and password. So the default for this right now is true. So that's why this integrated security is just Windows. So it's good that it's there because we didn't have to put a username and password, but that's what it defaults to. So at this point, what we've done is we've replaced that default connection to a connection to our actual database. So I'm going to save, and then I'm going to go back to start without debugging, and let's see what the result is. So there, my website is fully intact, but it's connected to our database. I was recording the video and I got to this point, but I continued on and I finished the entire tutorial. And for some reason, my recording software cut off the last 25 minutes of this video. So I actually have progressed to quite a bit further within the video. And I actually got to the point where I produced this, and I was actually able to create new categories and populate those and make all these things functioning. But unfortunately, I've lost all that recording. So what I think the best solution is, rather than go through and start deleting, you can see I've got all these views that were created, and within my database I've got all these models that were created for my categories. Rather than go in and delete all that and potentially break my code, I think what I'm going to do is actually turn this off and go back to GitHub and look for my last actual commit. And so I think I'm going to show you that right now. So you can see in my GitHub that I've actually got 4 more commits since the last save. And I've got a comment, changed my server connection string to my local server. So that's where we are right now. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and get that code. That's the change. So you can see here on this particular commit, it's just showing the differences. So if I go back to my code, you can see that that other string is there. I just commented it out, but I'm relatively in the same spot. So I'll go back to my GitHub and get out of there. And I'm going to browse this. And I think what I'll do is I'll download this. I got to sign in apparently. Now that sign in is if I want notifications, but you can see down the bottom that it's already downloaded this. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and open that project up again, and then we'll get back to work. So I've gone ahead and I've downloaded that, and I changed the name. There was a long digit number there, but it's in a zip file. And so I'm just going to extract it. And once it's extracted, then I'm just going to go ahead and open up the solution file. So you can see that long digit number there. And I don't actually want that, so I'm going to get rid of that. But I will maybe do v2, just to show that I made a mistake. So you can see everything's actually in here as it was, and I'll open up the solution. And here are all my project files, and if I look at all my views, none of that stuff that I had in there previously is there. So basically I've gone back in time. Yeah, okay, everything is there. And just to be safe, I'm gonna start a debug and have a look at the application as it is. And here we are. Everything is as it was just before the issue with my recording device. So that's great. So the next step is in this process is we have to use something called our entity framework. And often you may have heard a term called scaffolding. Don't think of scaffolding in terms of what a normal scaffold is. Just think of it, when you hear the word scaffolding, what it means is that the software does some automated steps on your behalf. And as you're going to see, there is probably close to 500 or 600 lines of code that actually get auto-generated on your behalf by the entity framework. That's in the days previous to entity framework. You would have had to code all this on your own. But what's going to happen is we're going to use the entity framework and do some scaffolding. And we use this object database mapper. That's really what the power of this is. So we are going to use this entity framework to build all of the models inside of our application from all the previous work that we've done. So instead of we've created the database and we've created the tables in it, now what we're going to do is actually use the entity framework to build out all of the models and the views. And it's with a few short steps, it actually gets automated for us, and it saves us literally close to 500 to 600 lines of code, which I think is an absolutely phenomenal way of doing web development. So if you get a chance, go into the Microsoft and just type in what an entity framework is and do some reading on it. So I'm going to go over to Visual Studio, and I have to go over to my dependencies. You can see in here and in frameworks. You see the frameworks in here, the Microsoft ASP, NetCore. You see these other frameworks, but what I'm really interested in right now within this is the packages. Okay, if you don't have the SQL server, this Microsoft Entity Framework Core.SQL, what I'm going to do is really quickly, I'm going to go show you how to get it and how to maybe update it if yours is out of date. It's always best to keep your packages up to date. So let's go ahead and do that now. So Tools, Nougat Package Manager, and this Manage Nougat Packages for Solution. And it brings you to this dialog box here, and it tells me what I've got installed already. So it looks like I have what I want. And really what I want to make sure is I've got the most up-to-date copy, and I do. I got 3.1.3. That's the most up-to-date copy. But notice here, I want to make sure if I don't have this in here. And the other thing is we can go to browse. Okay, if I don't have it, I can go to and then just type in this SQL. Okay, as I'm typing in SQL, what'll happen is it'll take me to this here. It tells me that that's there. Okay, if you don't have that, then this is your opportunity now to go and get it. Okay, and if you look, the latest version is 3.1.4, and what I have in there is 3.1.3. So I'm going to go to Georgian Computers. I've got my version, the latest version, and I'm actually going to install that and hit OK. I accept. So now you can see that I've actually got the most up-to-date version of that, which I think is great because we're really going to need this. And if I go to here, you can see there's updates. It's looking for updates, but I got to turn off the SQL. So at the moment, I don't want to update these things, but what I do want to do is confirm what I have installed. If I wanted to go find it, I could go to browse, and I've got all these. I'm just not going to update right now because it's not important for this video. So I'm all updated, which I think is great. If I go back to this documentation, the one thing I want to kind of bring your attention, this ORM, this Object Database Mapper, it's not the only one out there, but because we're using Visual Studio for all this, it's the one we're going with. So there are other ORMs out there, but you know, just to be aware that they exist. But for this, we're going to use the entity frameworks for Microsoft. So why I'm spending my time on this is because this is what's going to allow us to connect our application to our database that we've done in the manager. Okay, so we've used our Server Management Studio. We built a database, and now we're back in Visual Studio. This is what allows us to connect back to all of that, those tables. It's a very, very important package manager, and we're actually quite lucky to use this. So the next thing we're actually going to do is we're going to run this special command. It's a DB Context Scaffold. It's a very important step. So a DB context is just the name of a class that connects to a database. Okay. So we're going to create a database class connection inside our project. And like I said earlier, scaffold is, when you hear the term scaffolding, it's just auto-generated code inside your application, which is great. So let me go ahead and clean this up a little bit and get some of the things out of the way. And I want you to look at the inside our views, and I'm going to open up models. You see here we've got the two models, and inside of views we have home, shared, and store. Okay, so this is all going to change, and that's all going to be auto-generated, scaffolded, or changed, or created for us. So it's a pretty exciting feature about this, and let's just I'll run through the command, and then we're going to break it down. So it's a long sort of typed in user command or command line interface type of thing down here. So you've got your package manager console, and you should see this little PM in here. So I'm going to show you the command, and then we're going to break that down. So to do this, I've got to go to my apps settings.json. The reason is I'm going to need that connection string. Okay, so grab the quotations, you need the entire string. And I'm going to copy this line of code because we're going to use it down here. The reason I need this connection string is this is what connects to my actual local database. Okay, so this is the pathway or the highway to where we want to go. So this package manager console can be found again over in tools. And if you go to Nougat package manager, it's not the middle one we were just in. It's actually this package manager console. That's going to bring up this particular window, and it should pop up beside your error list or your output. Okay, and then you'll see this PM. So again, that's tools, Nougat Package Manager, and Package Manager Console. Okay, so the first thing I want to type in here is this. We're going to start the code, but one thing I'll let you know is I'll post this line of code onto Blackboard so that you have it. So it looks like this: scaffold hyphen, I guess, DB context. Okay, and this is where now I want to paste in my actual connection string. Okay, so there's a little bit more to this, but you should be at this point now. So scaffold DB context, and then your connection string here. So this line of code is going to generate the connection, but it's also going to generate models for all 5 of the tables that we have in our database. Okay, so we're going to end up seeing an updated our updated models over here. You're going to see the 5 tables that get populated, and then you're also going to see different views. Okay, and that's all done through this one particular line of code. So the first thing is we have to tell it what kind of database we're actually connecting to. So it's a Microsoft Entity Framework Core, and it's an SQL server. So I'm just going to type that in: Microsoft dot Entity Framework. And be careful of the way I'm capitalizing and not capitalizing. Core, and it's an SQL server. And again, I'll post this on Blackboard for you. The next thing I want to say is that the output directory, output dir, is our models folder. Okay, so we're outputting to this particular folder right here. Okay, so that's what this line of code is. This little hyphen here with the output dir to models. And the last thing that I want, and I'll explain later, is minus or hyphen or whatever that is, data annotations. Okay. So while I said I will copy this line, I'm more interested in you having this part of the line of code. This here does belong to your computer. Okay, so just be aware that if there's any difference between your connection string and mine, if you try to run this with my connection string, it's going to try to go and grab my computer instead of yours. So just make sure, but for now, because it's local, it's probably not going to be an issue. But if I was connecting to an exterior database, this would throw a real problem for you. So I'll post the entire line of code just so you can match it up, but just double check that there's no changes here. I don't think there will be if you're doing a local, but it's software, so you never know what you're going to get. So I'm actually going to run this, and I know for a fact I'm going to get an error because I've already been through this entire video one other time. So you can see it's starting, and it should throw me an error. Okay, so you're seeing the yellow line, and let's see what happens with the errors in a second. Okay, so what you're seeing is the following file already exists in directory, and it's this file right here, this products.cs. That's because we've already done this, and within the database that we already made, there's already a table called products. So what I'm trying to do with this line of code is generate a products model, except I've already got a products model. So I'm trying to get all 5 of those different tables, but unfortunately one of them already exists. So I think the best thing for me to do is I'm just going to go in and I'm going to actually delete this product. Yep. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete that. Okay. It's not the only place that I've got that problem though. So if I want to rerun the command, just hit the up arrow okay? And it's going to highlight where I've got another problem. Okay, so where's my problem again? So it should tell me where my other error is. Okay, I don't see it there. Oh, okay, so there it is. So if I go to this file, store controller, okay, so I go up to my controller file, notice in my store file, what it's doing is it's looking for products, and I just deleted the entire model. So it's looking for an object that doesn't exist anymore. So I think what I'll do is I'm just going to go into store, and let me close this first. Okay. Okay, I've closed that file, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and delete the controller. Right? So let's see if my errors go away. Yeah, so my errors went away. Now, one more time, I'm going to run this command, but before I do, I want you to look at my models and at the views. Okay, so this is, I think, one of the best parts of this whole thing. This is going to do two things. It's going to connect to my database, but then it is going to create 5 different models inside my models folder that are basically the database tables that we've already created in the server manager. So I'm going to just run this, and then, oh, I've got another error. Okay, so you're still seeing that I'm getting an error, and the reason would be because I have to build the solution again. I've made big changes to my SQL database, or sorry, to my my C# code, and it's throwing errors. So I have to rebuild it before I can make these changes. So I'm still getting an error, and this is probably the reason. So inside my store, I've got a reference to that products. So I'm going to just delete store as well. Yes. Okay. So let's give this one more try, and hopefully it'll work just fine. Okay, great. Now look at everything that we're seeing here. So let's go over first to the models. Okay, inside our models, we're seeing cart, category. I'll come back to this one. Order, order details, and products. This products is different from the one that we had originally done. And I definitely want to come back to this one because there's some modification that we need from it. Okay, but if you notice, let me just, which one is open? So I'll close this, and I'm going to open up cart. Okay, look at everything that is inside of cart. Okay, what's the other one I want to do? Category. Categories got a lot of code in here, which is absolutely outstanding for us. And order details. Okay, that is all based off of the database that we created. Okay, and you'll notice here order detail ID, it's all in there. Okay, interesting here, what you're seeing is that it's a key, order detail ID, order detail product ID. Okay, so these are all models of the database. Okay, this is where the MVC paradigm comes in, is that the models are actually represented by, or they represent the tables in the database. Okay, so I said I would explain what this line is, this data annotations. That's actually, without this line here, we wouldn't be able to see stuff like this string length, okay, or key. We wouldn't have that additional information that we want. So that's why it's in there. Again, right here, cart ID string length is 100. So that's what the point of that particular line of code is right there. So I did misspeak earlier, and I said that we would be putting in 5 models, but in fact it's actually 6. And this one here, which is already open, this is our connection model class. So this line of code that you see right here, this Georgian Computers context, we need to spend a minute or two talking about that. So this object, Georgian Computer Context, is of type DB context. And where might, let's go look at one of the other models that we've created. Okay, so maybe product. Product is the one maybe I should look at. Because what's interesting to note about product is that what this class is saying is that it's actually got a relationship to cart and order detail. Okay? Which is, if you think back to the ERD, we do have that relationship specified already inside the database. Okay, so if you look at the 6 models that were produced, and you look at all of the lines of code, like this is 30 order detail. Well, that's about 23 lines. Categories, not so bad. Cart. Okay, so there is an enormous amount. Like this one here is about 111 lines of code. So an enormous amount of code has been generated on our behalf. That's the power of scaffolding. Okay, so I think that's a pretty significant thing for us to have in the MVC paradigm. Okay, and this is really the power of .NET Core, which is different from, say, MVC 5 or 6, where we had a lot more work to do. But in the core, you're generating the database first and then the model after. So it's a big distinction. So that the database is coming first, then we're generating the models from the database. So I've gone ahead and cleaned up some of this. And the one thing I would like to do, we've got one last thing that we really have to clean up. Okay, so go to your startup down here, open up that file there. And there's one more little configuration change that we need to make in 2 places. So what we have to do is reconfigure the server-side code. Okay, this runs every time our application is started. So when you see me open up the, when I basically do a start without debugging, that's what actually runs. So we need to make a small configuration change to that. So what's happening at this point is that if you look at this line for me, this is 30 to 32. It's this application, DB context. This is what I need to change. It's not going to the right place. So I got to go ahead and get the updated line of code to go in there. This isn't what the connection class that we created is called. This is application DB context. We need the other one that we created. So our database connection class was actually, it's in the models folder. Okay, and here it is. That's what it is. There's the word Georgian Computers context. So I've got to open that up. Okay, and this is what we're looking for. Okay, go a little further up. It's this right here. This is the connection class that we've created. So I need this right here. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to go back to my startup and I'm going to replace it right here. Okay, there's that one and I've got another one down here. Okay, and notice I'm getting now an error. And if you go up to the top, you'll notice these using statements. What I need to do is put in the proper using statement. And so it does give me to show me a potential fix. So I'm going to select on that and see here. It says using Georgian Computers.models, okay, which is over here on the right side. We're using our model for this. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And this error should go away. And now when we go back to the top, you can see the line is right there, using Georgian Computers.models, which is this folder here. Okay, so the error should go away. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna do a build, because I've modified C# code, and you notice I've got a successful build, no errors. So I'm gonna clean this up a little bit, maybe some of my views. Now, what I want to do is create a new controller. Okay, because notice I don't have any controllers going to any of that. So I'm going to right click on Add Controller. Okay, so in the past I was using empty, but now because I've been using the entity framework, I can go ahead and select that. Okay, and you can read the notes about this, but you'll see create, read, update, and delete. So CRUD. Okay, so I'll hit add. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we've got the model. We're trying to make a controller. Okay, so for this example, what I'm going to do is let me cancel this just for 1 second. Okay, and I'm going to go to my models, and notice I've got all these models here. Right now, I'm going to create the category model, or the controller to get me to the categories. Okay, so it's an important step. Eventually, we're going to have to do this for all of the models, but right now I'm just going to do one for category. Okay, so if I go back to controller, add controller, and I'm going to use the middle one there with the entity framework, add, and this is my model class. Okay, and right now I want to use category, okay, and data context class. And I've got two options, the application data context, which I don't want. Okay, but I want this one. This is the class that we just made, and this is what we just connected to. So that's the one I want. Now, the next thing is if I go down to this box here, and I'm going to look for my shared, okay, and I want the shared layout CSS so that I get the same common look and feel that I've had throughout the rest of my views. Okay, so views, shared, layout.css or CSHTML. Okay, and then I'll leave the category controllers. So it's going to auto-generate this line for me. So I click add, and then you'll see over here on the right that my controller is going to appear inside my controllers folder. And there it is. There's my controller. Okay. So really quickly, let's just look at what's happening inside this controller. Okay, I've got my connection class to this is to my database. Down here, I've got an index with a view. I've got details, create, edit, and did I miss anything? And view. Okay, so look at the amount of code just that one controller did. That's 152 lines of code, just with a couple of mouse clicks. Okay, so what I do want to do right now, I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to do a build because this is all C#, and I want to make sure that it's all good to go before I go back to the actual app on the computer. So let's go to start without debugging. Okay, so it all works. So now if I go into here, categories right here, it looks like I've already done it, and check that out. I've got all of this right now happening. Okay, I didn't touch any HTML, nothing, no CSS, no nothing, but it's all in here. So it looks like in my database, because like I said, I've already done this video, I have all three of these models that are, or all of these records inside my database. Okay, and I can test this out. Looks like, okay, I've done some work. So create. Notice here this demo, edit, and delete number 1. So if I go to edit, I can change this to 2. Okay, save. It's changed. Details. I don't really have much details to this, but back to list. And then let me go ahead and hit delete. And notice here it's got all this CSS, all this styling and everything in there. I put my hover over that delete button and it changes color. Okay, so I'm gonna delete that and I have all those records in there. So this is the power of scaffolding. Okay, all this automation happened. And I want to go back to Visual Studio and talk about this relationship a little bit because I think it's worth it. So if you have any sort of confusion or questions about what it is the MVC does, notice what we've done. We've got views. Okay, this is what the user sees when I actually turn on the page. This is my view, right? But I've got a database. That's my models. Okay, so in Visual Studio, you see this relationship. I've got models, which is actually my database. Okay, and then controllers. My controllers are what put the right views in front of me based on what I select as a user. So every time I click a link or a button or something like that, it puts the proper view in front of me. Okay, so that's where this triangular relationship between models, views, and controllers comes from. So if you're wondering, why is it that I didn't actually go and start doing, why didn't I create separate views or anything like that? Because when I created this controller, this categories controller, look down in the views box. I've actually got all the associated views with categories. It was auto-generated when I made this. This is where all these method calls came from. Okay, the views are there. Okay, so just by creating that controller, the views got populated inside my views for the categories. And look here, I've got create, delete, details, edit, and index. All 5 of those views were auto-generated or scaffolded based on when I created the controller. So the relationship has been established now. I've got the models from the database that was used from the database to generate automatically those models. Then I created my controller, and by creating the controller, it scaffolded all of my categories views. Phenomenally powerful when you consider that prior to this, you would have had to have gone in and coded this all hydraulically by yourself. Okay, this saved you not hours, but days worth of coding. I think that's pretty powerful. Okay, so we're not done. We have created a pretty great working model of what we want to do for this, but we're not done. We have a lot of editing and things to do to this. We may not like the way the presentation of this website. Maybe we want to change some templating. We want to change our bootstrap. We want to make it look totally different. Okay, so that's a lot of styling or formatting and stuff like that we can still do. But for now, I think what I'm going to do is just, I'm going to conclude this video and let you go through it, work through it, play around with it, and really sit down and try to figure out all the steps or what it is exactly that we're trying to accomplish here. Don't think of it in terms of all the work that you have to do. Think of it in terms of how can you get Visual Studio to do all of the work for you. And by allowing that to happen, the beauty of this is it certainly does reduce the number of errors that you can type in with what we refer to as fat finger syndrome. Okay, so I'm going to conclude it there, and next week we'll improve this, make it a little better. But I think we've got to a really good starting point so far in this video. So thanks for watching.